My name is Ainsley Kinman, and I'll be speaking about Samuel Hopkins Adams. He was born in 1871, and he was an American writer and a muckraker. He was known for writing on public health education and patient medicine. He exposed the corruption of businesses to the public, reporting on the dark corners of public health and patient medicine. He went about exposing by writing documents for the public to see to get the government to make a change to society and protect the innocent lives of everyday people who had no clue what was happening behind closed doors. I used biographies, news articles, copies of the quoted novels, and acts. He wrote 11 articles in The Great American Fraud, advocated for Pure Food and Drug Act, and he spoke up for the innocent lives of others to protect them from evil, corrupt businesses trying to become rich. His writing and reporting became corrupt to the public by regarding patient medicine businesses. He exposed many of the false, even ridiculous claims made by patient manufacturers. He wrote a series of 11 articles that would later be known as the Great American Fraud in 1905. He spoke on some of the country's most popular medicines and argued that most of these companies producing medicine were making false claims and false advertisement. He also said these medicines were, if anything, more damage than help. He talked about these drugs and alcohols to advocate the companies advertised what they were doing versus what they were actually doing and what they would do in the long run. His other reasoning for advocating what these drugs did and exposing the lies was to try to get the government to realize what these companies were doing and overthrow or do away with them. One of the medicines that Adams spoke about in the Great American Fraud was acetylene. Acetylene was advertised to get rid of headaches, but what companies were not telling others were the side effects of what it did to your body when taking it. He talked about these side effects in the Great American Fraud. He exposed that yes, it will relieve your headache, but it does so by putting a complete stop to your heart, and if taken regularly, it can result in fatality. Other medicines Adams spoke about were cocaine, opium, and alcohol. He spoke that yes, these may be a temporary fix to pain, but in the long run, it causes an addiction. Addicts with the possibility of survival and some with the possibility of fatality from overdosage. These addicts would take more than needed to help with pain, causing them to feel something they've never felt, resulting in them wanting more. They would be willing to go to whatever measures to be able to acquire a greater amount to satisfy their cravings. Alcohol also creates drunkenness and no longer helps with your health, it just deteriorates it. Alcohol was given to children and women way more than needed, which later became an addiction and was no longer healthy. Adams spoke corresponding with alcohol, cocaine, that addiction comes with a large expense. Adams knew these companies were not in it for healthy living, they were in it for the money. He knew that this would create addicts, and after being addicted, they would go to drugstores and spend everything to try to get these drugs after running out, which allowed these companies to increase manufacturing and enhance profitable gain. There were signs posted in drugstores that stated to not ask about the price. This goes to show that the companies knew what they were doing. They knew that the addicts would spend any amount to purchase more. Adams also tried to give people a natural alternative to medicines to help with their issues, but because these companies were constantly acquiring more financial gain, they were able to spread quicker and more efficiently than Adams. Also, with most drug addicts dying from overdose, they were not able to advocate what these drugs were doing. Therefore, the company did not receive the amount of backlash needed to put it to an end. After writing these articles and continuously advocating for better care, he took it further to try to get the government involved. He continued writing more articles and books and inserting snippets into newspapers until later he advocated enough for the Pure Food and Drug Act to be passed. His whole purpose was to get the government involved and make these companies at least put side effects on the labels. After exposing enough hidden information, he finally contributed to the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906, which required the medicine be properly labeled, along with other things, and that the ingredients be on the labels. He had to battle the government, though. President Theodore Roosevelt and Secretary of Agriculture James Wilson had a referee board set up. The referee board worked with the food industry to undercut the Pure Food and Drug Act. So Adams' release of the Pure Food and Drug Act did not actually prohibit misleading labels. He did this to try to cause a disturbance with the public, and Supreme Court hoping that the outrage of it all would cause the government to enforce the Pure Food and Drug Act. Adams went on to write a novel in 1914, Clarion. This novel included a version of his fight against medicine evils and frustrations of reforms and health officers. The novel caused a great controversy, resulting in many not advertising and selling the book. In summary, the novel included a son of a quack who became rich off of selling medicine. The son changed his perspective on medicine and realized that journalists should be there to tear down and stop the corruption of these companies. The son eventually exposed his father and his wife because she owned one of the tenements where the epidemic was raging. Eventually, the father and wife realized that they were wrong and decided to change. The novel portrayed a journalist hero that promised to the public that the journalist would fight for the people, and solutions do exist. Samuel Hopkins Adams' intellectual studies contributed to various articles, news reports, government enforcement, public speaking, and publication of numerous novels, all as effective as communication to advocate patient healthcare and medication distribution. The communication tactics provided outstanding knowledge to the public until his passing in 1958. His accomplishments in advocating for the healthcare industry was proven a success by the world as we know it today. Adams spent his adult years spreading awareness to the public to try to protect them from the corrupt companies selling overpriced drugs that were misleading and harmful to the human body. In summary, Adams did everything in his power to try to overthrow these companies and raise awareness to the public about what they were spending their money on and consuming. He went as far as exposing the president at the time and writing several of his own novels. Every chance Adams got, he spoke and advocated for better patient health care. He published dozens of books, involved in hundreds of articles and short stories, and wrote many magazine stories, novels, mysteries, biographies, and both political and historical. He wrote 2 sexually explicit novels that were his bestsellers.